First of all, Giuseppe and I have to apologize for our English, but we hope you appreciate our effort to speak in your language.
We are very honored to address such a large and select audience. Our first reverent greetings are for His Eminence Lozano Paragon, His Excellency Bishop Dan, and affectionate hello to our dear Colleen and all those present.
You have asked me to speak about my mom, Saint Gianna Beretta Molla, who is certainly an important witness to the sacrality of human life. As a mother, she had the grace of attaining the greatest possible love, sacrificing her own life so that her offspring might live. At the end of the second month into her last pregnancy, a large tumor appeared in her uterus, a tumor which, although benign, could endanger the development and birth of the baby and also mother's own life. The doctor in charge advised her to be operated on. As a physician herself, mother knew very well the risk she would incur by allowing her pregnancy to continue. But she asked the surgeon instead to save the life she carried in her womb, and took her pregnancy to the end with unparalleled strength of soul and confidence in divine providence. A few days before delivery, she told my dad, "If you must choose between me and the child, don't hesitate. I demand that you choose the child. Save her." On April 21, 1962, my sister Gianna Emanuela was born, but 1 week later, after terrible sufferings during which she would repeat, "Jesus, I love you," Mom died of septic peritonitis. She was 39. All over the world, and in most different conditions, other mothers have also made the sacrifice of their lives. By canonizing my mother, the Church has intended to honor them all.
In fact, the lamented great Pope John Paul II, on April 24, 1994, in his homily for her beatification, said, "We wish to pay homage to all courageous mothers who dedicated themselves without reserve to their families, who suffer to deliver their babies and are ready to bear every fatigue and face any sacrifice to give them the very best of themselves." To fully understand the mother's message and the outstanding value of her example, we have to take into account that her meditated immolation, as Pope Paul VI defined it, was not an isolated gesture of heroism, but the crowning of a whole life of virtue, a life lived constantly in light of the gospel as a young woman, physician, spouse, and mother.
Mother's Holiness has deep roots in the family of my grandparents, Alberto and Maria Beretta. As Third Order Franciscans, they transmitted to her the most precious gift of the faith, with a solid Christian education, hampered even more with their example as daily communicants who prayed assiduously and showed a generous spirit of sacrifice and dedication to neighbor.
At age 15, she participated in a course in spiritual exercises led by a Jesuit priest This left an indelible mark on her spiritual life. On her little appointment book she wrote, "Jesus, I promise thee to bear everything that thou allowest to befall me. Just let me know thy will, and I make the resolution to die rather than commit a mortal sin." Mother actually lived these thoughts and resolutions day after day, and even until then faithfully followed the teachings of her family. From that moment on, she takes her own personal route to follow Christ entirely.
From the teachings she gave the young people under her care, one can deduce the main traits of her life of faith: prayer, the Eucharist, and mental prayer. Among her notes we read, "The first duty of a member of Catholic Action is prayer, a life of piety lived with intensity. With her commitment to education, she did not forget to do works of corporal mercy. In fact, since very young, she was active with the Ladies of St. Vincent de Paul, an association then very common in all parishes, dedicated to helping the poor.
This generous love of neighbor was decisive when it came to choosing her profession. Becoming a medical doctor would be her way to serve those who suffer and to fulfill her need for self-giving. Thus, Mother conceived and lived her professional activities as a mission. On her prescription book, she wrote down a few points under the title, "The Beauty of Our Mission." Everyone in the world works somehow at the service of man. We work directly on man. Our object in science and work is the man who, standing before us, calls out, "Help me," and expects to receive from us the fullness of existence. It is Jesus who said, "He who visits the sick helps me." This is a priestly mission. Just as a priest can touch Jesus, we physicians touch Jesus in the body of our sick, whether they be poor, young, old, or children.
So she became a doctor and after graduation specialized in pediatrics, thus revealing her maternal instinct and innate vocation to welcome nascent human life into the world. I like her clear-cut professional vocation, which she embraced with complete self-assurance. The choice of her state in conjugal life required more careful discernment. She had an extreme elevated concept of marriage and motherhood, as she explained in her lecture to young ladies of Catholic Action, which read, "Every vocation is a vocation to material, spiritual, and moral motherhood. God has placed the instinct of life in us. The priest is a father, sisters are mothers, mothers of souls. Woe to young ladies who don't accept their vocation to motherhood. Everyone must prepare himself for his or her own vocation. Having a calling for family life doesn't mean becoming engaged at 14. One cannot take up this path if one does not know how to love. To love means to have a desire for perfecting oneself and the person one loves, to overcome one's own egoism and to give oneself. Love must be total, full, and complete, governed by the law of God, and must become eternal in heaven. Purity governs the just and licit use of sensible pleasures. Our body is sacred. Our body is an instrument, alongside the soul, to do good. How to keep on one's purity? By surrounding our body with a hedge of sacrifice. Purity becomes beauty. Purity becomes freedom.
From her early youth, she had a love for the missions, which she acquired from her mother and from Catholic action, a love that received a boost from the example of her brother, Friar Alberto.
Thus, for a while, she nurtured the idea of joining my uncle in Brazil as a lay missionary. But through prayer and the advice of her spiritual director, she understood that was not her vocation and finally gave up the idea. But she never stopped asking herself what God wanted of her. She understood that her path was the one of marriage, and when she met Daddy, both had no doubt. They recognized in each other the one God had willed to unite from all eternity. So both understood the fact they had met was a gift from Mary, the Heavenly Mother they had invoked for so long. In fact, in June 1954, under the gaze of Our Lady of Lourdes, Mother understood her own vocation. On December 9th of the same year, the day after they met, Daddy wrote on his personal diary, "I feel a serene tranquility that assures me I met a good date yesterday. The Immaculate Mother has blessed me."
The most beautiful letters the two exchanged during their engagement testify to their joy, projects, and expectations as they prepared themselves for matrimony.
Hence, exactly 50 years ago, September 24, 1955, having prepared themselves with 3 days of prayer, Mother and Daddy got married.